Okay, guys, before I start teaching you our new concept for the day, I kind of want to frame how it fits into everything that we've been doing. So if you think back to when we were working with equations, now we've been working with inequalities lately. Now we're working with equations. When we worked with equations, we kind of did this. We started with stuff like this that was like, is the first thing we did is like, is this the right answer to this? Yes or no? And we use substitution to do that. And then after we did that, next we moved on to like, okay, instead of is this the right answer, here's an equation. What is the right answer? Can you find it yourself? That was our next thing. And then after that, we moved this was like beginning level. This was developing level. Then it was a big step forward. We went to proficient. Proficient was like, okay, well, what about using that skill in a real situation? And remember how hard that was, how big of a step forward that was for us. Like, okay, here's like a real situation. Which equation represents the situation? And then we could go get the answer and make sure it was reasonable. So it was like a big step forward to get to that part. And if we looked at our success criteria for equations, it was like, is a given answer correct? Then can you solve one? Then can you match it to a real situation? Or even then to distinguish was like write the equation yourself was even, the next step forward. So now we're kind of in the same place with inequalities. We started inequalities with stuff like this. Is this the right solution? Is this a solution to this inequality? Yes or no? Beginning. Then, just like equations, the next thing we did is like, okay, what is all the solutions? What is the solution set to this inequality? And so, kind of following the same progress on our success criteria for inequalities, we've done the same things with equations. We was like, first, determine whether a given answer is correct, then sort of like find the solution set is in developing. You can imagine where we're going next. To get to proficient, we have to get into realistic situations and realistic problems. That was a really big step forward when we did equations, and it's going to be a really big step forward today as well. So again, please make sure your binders, close your pencils down. Right now, I just want you listening and trying your best to understand this with no pressure to write anything down. So just get your full maximum concentration going. And I want to show you what the problems look like and how to think about them where you just listen and think. First, I promise you'll have time to write and to take notes, just not yet. Okay? So here's our move forward. Problems that we're going to move forward in today look like this. What we're going to do today is try to figure out when I'm given a situation, which I'll get to this situation in a minute, does that situation have an equation that matches it, or does it have an inequality that matches it? And if it has an inequality that matches it, which one? So let me model how that goes. So today our situation is, can I match a situation to an equation or an inequality? So here's our situation I want to start with. Jake has already written 5 paragraphs for a writing assignment. The assignment has to be more than 8 paragraphs. Which equation or inequality below could be used to figure out how many more paragraphs Jake needs to write? So again, the first way I want to think about it is, would I model that situation with an equation? There's only one possibility. Or with an inequality, there's 4 possibilities: greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So as I look at this, Jake has already written 5 paragraphs for an assignment. The assignment has to be more than 8 paragraphs. So how many paragraphs could it be? It could be 9. It could be 10. It could be 11. It could be 12. And so on like that. There's lots of possible answers to this, not one. This to me looks like a solution set. Lots of possible solutions, not a single solution. So I've already kind of cued in like, okay, I don't think this is an equation. I think this is an inequality because there's lots of possible things he could write. You know, the answer to this equation is just 3. You know, 3 is not what's left to do. So with that in mind, I think it's not an equation. I think it's an inequality. So the next thing to talk about is how many more paragraphs does he need to write? Well, if the whole thing needs to be more than 8, he's already written 5. If he writes 3, that won't be enough because it's not more than 8 paragraphs if he writes 3. So he could write 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this more than to me sounds like greater than. And the answers are 4, 5, 6, and up. So to me, this sounds like the number that he needs. I think it's going to be this one. The number of paragraphs he needs to write plus 5 that he's already written. Those together need to be more than 8. More, greater than 8. So this seems to me like the one to beat. This says more than, and here again, 4 works, 5 works, 6 works, and I think it's that one. In the question, the words more than were the ones that really helped me choose that answer. That's the one that represents the situation. How many more paragraphs does he need to write? I thought that through in my progress as well. He needs to write 4, 5, 6, and so on, more paragraphs. So this situation would be represented by this inequality and not those. That's how I think about it. I'm going to do another one. It's a lot to get used to, I know. Here is a second one. Let me line it up. So again, still pencil down, still just listening, I promise. I just want you concentrating, thinking, and starting to understand this a little with me. Mr. Dawson is making a grocery budget for the month of January. He plans to split the monthly budget equally among 4 shopping trips. To stay under budget, Mr. Dawson figures he should spend less than $720 total. Which equation or inequality below could be solved to find out how much money he can spend each week? Okay, so is this, again, I want to separate, would I represent this situation with an equation or would I represent it with an inequality? So the first thing I need to find out is sort of like equations mean exact, like he needs to spend exactly $720. Equal means exactly. These are kind of like more thans, and these are kind of like less thans. So I kind of need to look at my situation and determine, is he spending exactly or more or less? And I see pretty clearly here, he's spending less than $720. So the amount of money he spends 4 times however much per week should be less than 720. And the way that's worded to me, it sounds like 720 exactly is not okay. Doesn't say he can spend 720. It sounds like he needs to spend less. So I know this isn't an equation situation because it doesn't say he needs to spend exactly 720. Doesn't sound like a more than situation either. So it's going to be one of these. This is the key to determining which one. It can't be $720. This one down here, less than or equal to, he would be, whoops, sorry about that. He would be able to spend exactly $720 there. Let me scroll back up to it, sorry. I made the computer skip. So back here, I don't think it's this one either because he can't spend 720. So he can't, it's not that one either. So it sounds to me like this is the one we want to see. 4 times however much he's going to spend each week is equal to $720. So the words less than helps me decide. And last thing is, what's the solution? How much money can he spend each week? So what are the possible amounts? 4 times the amount he's going to spend each week, 720. So multiplication's in the question. So I'm going to use division to solve it. Let me pull up my calculator. and 720 divided by 4. He can spend, if it was an equation, he would be able to spend 180 each week. That would give him exactly 720, but he needs to spend less than that. So he can spend less than $180. However you figure that out. He can spend 179, 178, 177. Any of those will keep him on track. So that's 2 examples for you to just see and think about with me. We're still working on this, still learning. Don't expect you to have a great idea of how this works yet, but we're going to do the next examples together. So this video is about to end. The next one will have ones I do want you to write in your notes. So at this time, open up your notebook to your notes page for today. And in the next video, we'll walk through some examples together to help you see a couple more and to be ready to write some down.